in a few minutes, seconds, sorry, not minutes. And I'll mute everyone. If there is anyone wishes to say something, you can always raise your hand. Few minutes, seconds, sorry.
Ready, Khaled?
Born ready. Shoot.
Okay.
There is no sound, DTM Zahra. You forgot the sound. You need to share the sound.
How about it now?
No, you need to stop sharing and share again with the sound. No, there's no sound. Still don't hear. No. No. Did you share it with the sound? No, still.
Khaled, do you have it? Can you share it from your side? Do you mind?
I honestly did not download it, so you need
So
to share
just
the computer microphone. Try it one last time, and if it goes well, that's fine. If not, we'll just stop. I still don't hear the sound. Thank you so much. DTM Zahra, although there was no sound. You were the only one who was hearing the sound, but I'm sure the photos speaks louder than the sound itself. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good day to all the lovely faces all around the world in here. This is DTM Khalid, Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club President. Welcome you all on board on OiG 11th edition, Old is Gold 11th edition. Thank you so much for joining us this time. Let me give you a brief introduction about Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club. Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club, been there since 2004. This is the first advanced Toastmasters Club in the Middle East, if not in Region 11. We, as Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club member, are proud to have such legacy. And that's why we chose the theme for this term as Advancing a Legacy. Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club is a legacy for all of us to carry on our shoulder, to live by the advanced title of Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club. And I'm sure if Dr. Alfie Smedley was here today, he would definitely echo back what I'm saying here. You definitely feel it in today's experience. Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club have been having this OiG, All This Gold, as one of the flagship to represent the club. Yes, it's not a regular meeting, but we chose to extend the value to our members, to have another workshop in the same month. We meet once every month, but we chose to have the second meeting as OiG. Let me tell you a brief about OiG. I'm sure you saw the video, you saw lots of faces there, you were wondering what they were doing. OiG, or All This Gold, was a very simple idea. Came from our brilliant Vice President of Education and came on the ExCom member, and ExCom member acknowledged that idea. And since then, we started with very tiny little dream. What if we go back to the old, nice, lovely manuals of the Club Success Series and Leadership Series and bring them back to the Pathways generation and tell them that those who lived that generation would want to just tell them what were in those two manuals. And that's why we chose, let's revive back the old is gold. And we started with the members of the club. And the members of the club, what can I tell you about the members of the club? We have really a breadth of knowledge among members of the club. They are most senior members in District 20. So we're blessed to have such members. So we went on with the members. Then we thought to ourselves, okay, well, this is Zoom, this is virtual meetings. How can we add even more value? And that's where we said, let's open up for other members outside Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club. And that's where we attracted so many speakers that you've seen over and over the months that we have been conducting OiG. Today, we thought we end OiG in style. And we have two brilliant speakers who are about to give you their experience as well and share their experience to all of us. Before I jump into the experience and the speakers, let me tell you a little thing about me specifically, about the impact that one of the speakers that we have today on me specifically, and then I'll tell you the message behind it. So let me share with you this video. I know it might not be as audible enough, but I'll comment later on it.
Let me get with your trio and I'll get into the rest of it. This is the Toastmasters core 4 value. On the back of it is 4 core values of this organization. As you move forward and lead your club, reflect on these core 4 values. We should all know.
That was a small token that I got from DTM Richard Peck. By then, he was the first vice president And honestly speaking, I did not even know what the first vice president is or even his title. But the act of kindness that he brought to me that day made me feel that, well, I can really do more with just simple act of kindness. So my message to you as a president is, you never know what a small act of kindness would be to any person around us. And we as leaders during such difficult times, let's just look around to the members around us. Let's just look at their potential. Let's draw a vision to them. This vision was, of course, given to me by DTM Richard, and I'm proud that he ignited something in me that day. But trust me, whenever you deal with such people, with such leaders in our Toastmasters hierarchy, they give you something that you live by every day. DTM Richard was one of them. DTM Balraj also, when he saw me once, and we brought him as well in an event under Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club, he said, I see you as the district director. Now, this is something unique when you hear it from such leaders in our community, in our Toastmasters community. So please, my message to you, never, ever stop that act of kindness. You might not know what this small words of kindness mean to others. When you see something in others, just plant that vision to them. Maybe they don't have that vision. You have the vision to others. Just a small act of kindness. Thank you so much, DTM Richard. I can see our immediate, our international president also is here. Please acknowledge the international president, DTM Richard, among us. Thank you so much, DTM, for joining, and thank you so much for giving me that plant that I live by every day. Moving on with our agenda. What can I say about the next person? The next person, when I saw him as well, he planted a seed in me. I saw him in BSE, and for those around in Bahrain would know that BSE. He was rushing by. He was the district director for the biggest district in the world by then. I did not know him. He was rushing by. I was the PR head of that event. I don't really remember the event. Maybe it was club officers training. He came in rushing, and I met him, and I shook hands. Well, by then, shaking hands was fine before COVID, of course, kicked in. And since then, I learned in every interactions with this gentleman. And in us in Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club is also no different. He came in the bad times of Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club, when the club was about to maybe be a memory. He came in there and he said, why don't we revive the first Advanced Toastmasters Club in the district? And that's where, although he is not a chartering president, but that's why we call him as well a chartering president. The revival of Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club is in him, is because of him, and whatever is happening now, the glooming back of Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club is because of him. Please, without further ado, help me welcome our Master of Ceremonies and the moderator, our immediate past Region 11 advisor, DTM Ali Shahbaz Ali.
Thank you, our amazing president and club growth director, DTM Khalid Abdullah, for that wonderful introduction. Mr. International President Richard Peck, past International President Sir John, I can see he's somewhere in the list. I see a few international officers here from the past. I see past International Director Patrick, a good friend of mine who has come all the way. Thank you. Leaders, members of District 20 and around the world, I welcome you to the Old and Gold series of Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club. It's certainly a pleasure to welcome you all in this wonderful gathering. When I used to travel to the convention, at least till Colorado, I started back from Las Vegas and I didn't miss any. I used to sit in the first few rows and think, will I get an opportunity someday to introduce some international president, past international president? And while we were planning this meeting, I got that opportunity and I was like, wow, I will be quite nervous to introduce international president himself. But the dream came true. So nothing is impossible. So when you watch the world champion of public speaking this time and watch the international president taking care of the whole process, who knows, someday you will get an opportunity to introduce the international president. Wait a minute, just let me wipe the sweat I'm getting already. Okay, let's get started. Here it is. I have this opportunity to introduce the captain of the day. Of course, we have a co-captain as well. Let's get started with the international president speaking. Of course, we all know who he is. Our international president was a senior member of Network Support Division at AT&T, the giant telecommunication industry in the world, where he had worked for over 30 years. During his tenure as a project manager, he led cross-functional teams to successfully deliver several multi-million-dollar high-tech projects annually. His volunteer work includes serving as club president, lieutenant governor for Kiwanis International, serving with Lions Club International, as well as serving in various capacities with the Catholic War veterans. Our international president enjoys traveling, and recently we saw him touring in District 94, and that was wonderful. He loves studying world cultures and helping others achieve more than they believe they can. Our international president, Richard Peck, is going to speak about the wisdom of reflection. The wisdom of reflection. Let's welcome International President DTM Richard Peck. Mr. President, you are muted. So,
There we go. Too many mute buttons. I still haven't gotten it figured out. I often tell the hosts when I come in, they don't have to mute me because I have a separate mute button on my mic, but I end up never checking. Ali, thank you for that introduction. I didn't realize you were such a comedian. I've watched you grow. I can reflect upon the first day I saw you, met you, and the charisma that you brought with you and how you developed into that role. I remember my first trip to Bahrain and meeting Khalid, just been elected as the club president. And I could see the nervousness in him, that this was a big step for him, something that I'm not sure if he was volunteering for or voluntolding for as he took the front of the room. But it was an opportunity to watch a young individual, a young Toastmaster, who was willing to step forward into something. And as he was showing that video, he was reflecting upon his past, his journey to where he is today, a journey that is by far from over. And as he rightly stated, you just never know where the journey is going to lead you, what the path is going to be. I think for many of us, we plan a straight line journey. We know where we are and we know where we want to be, and we plan the path to go there. But along the way, we take side roads. It's not always such a straight line. And it's the side roads that help us grow. It's those little twists and turns that give us the skills, give us the talent, give us the knowledge that's needed. Today, as I talk to you about the wisdom of reflection, it's for that very reason. It's to think back to when you joined Toastmasters. What was your goal? Why was it that you joined? Was it to become the leader that you see before you? Was it to work on your communication skills? And as you reflect back, was what you thought you were going to be what you are now, or who you are now? When I joined Toastmasters in 2006, it was to develop my communication skills. That was it. I often joke that I didn't even know there was an international president of the organization. That was not something that was even on my radar, even on my path. All I wanted to do was to become better at communicating with people. I could speak just with other engineers. Those of you who are engineers on this call, you understand you can speak to other engineers. You just can't communicate with anybody else. So developing those skills to allow me to reach more people. And then, like many of you, there were club officer roles that came up. And for some reason, when I left the room to get a cup of coffee and come back, I was elected president. Don't leave a room during elections. It's bad. You get put into a position. And that was my first foray into leadership. And I was only in Toastmasters for a very short period of time. And then the next step came when I was asked to serve as an area director, area governor back then. And the journey continued. And it continued to where I am today. But it wasn't a journey that I set out on. It wasn't anything that I had scripted in front of me. It was because I allowed the journey to be what it was, to guide me, and that I didn't fight it. I didn't stammer my feet and say, I can't do this. I tried. And as I reflect back, it wasn't a journey by myself. No leader takes a journey by themselves. No member takes a journey by themselves. There's always somebody there guiding you, pushing you, pulling you to be a little bit better, to reach a little farther. But we also have to use the past. We also have to reflect to learn from it. Oftentimes nowadays, we try to erase our past for whatever reason. But the past isn't meant to haunt us. The past is meant to give us a place to remember, to either remember not to go back to, or to remember to learn from in what we were successful at. Let's reflect back on March 11th, 2020. Everyone remember that day? It was a day that the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a global pandemic. It was a day the world changed forever. The day a global community began to weep. Think about it. We were told we had to stay inside, quarantine, be socially distanced. Something that we had never, ever had to do before. None of us in our lifetime have ever had to be in a global pandemic. And we could have shuttered ourselves. We could have gone into hiding. We could have siloed. But we reflected on our past. We reflected on some things we had accomplished. We reflected on the online aspect of being able to get together. And we found ways to bring that to where we are today. For us, it's more than just communication and leadership. It's about community. It's about connection. It's about support and help. We found new ways to reach out and support one another. Think about this. If you're siloed and you have friends and family, it's easier to get through the days. If you're siloed and you're by yourself, these connections can be the only thing that's keeping you going, the only connection to others. Reflect on the past year and what you've seen and what you've witnessed. I have seen resiliency in our members like never before. I've seen individuals traveling the world. JJ and Eliza, Khaled Amin, just to name a few, have been visiting clubs around the world. And as they do, they're reflecting on their journey. They're reflecting on what they're learning. As I reflect upon the year of presidency, what a strange time to be the president of the international organization. A time when no visits were allowed. A time when we were living in 1 by 2 inch computer screen boxes. Anyone remember Max Headroom, the TV series from years ago? I was starting to feel like that, like I'm living in a box. But there was something about it that made it so unique. So unique. As a result of the challenges that we faced, I had to flip the script, and I encourage you all to do the same thing. Look for the opportunities. Look for the opportunities. And this year, the greatest opportunity I had before me was to institute the International President's World Tour, in which the goal was to visit 145 clubs in 145 countries. Nobody that's been a president has ever done that before. There was never an opportunity to do it. And not just to show up at a club, because let's be honest, if you have an index finger and an enter key, you can show up at any club. But to show up at those clubs and take on roles. I've given more pathway speeches this year than I think I've ever given before and gotten evaluations. But it allowed me to reflect on the importance of our organization. And that is, our members are what make us. Our members are our driving force. And to see them stay united, to see them working together in support, has really shown what you and who you are. The journey that started in 2006 has been unique for me, but it's allowed me to see things so different, so clear. When DTM Ali introduced me, he said that I like to study world cultures, and he's right. Cultures and communication are the things that keep us separate. The better we communicate and the more we understand each other's cultures, the better we can understand one another. Now, that doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but isn't it better to disagree and know why than just to disagree? So I've studied the cultures, and as I meet with clubs around the world, as you meet with clubs around the world, ask them, to share a little bit about their culture so that you can learn about them. I remember when I visited Bahrain, this was my first trip to Bahrain. And I didn't want to insult anybody. So I asked if it would be okay if I wore a native outfit. And Khaled remembers this because I came in with this outfit on, all done up. And I remember his comment. He said, "You seem natural wearing that. You haven't tripped over yourself yet. You haven't tried to take too long a stride to fall down." And he called me Sheikh Peck as I was walking in to the room. It's the cultures that we learn. It's those days that we reflect upon. I remember I was giving the speech about a leader's legacy, and the Khaled, you'll have to remind me. It was the Minister of Oil that was the patron of the event that day, right?
Yes, Sheikh Mohammed, yes.
Yep. So I was giving this lecture on legacy, this talk on legacy, and that we need to lose our titles as leaders. Titles are not the driver. The person is the driver. And here I am with the Minister of Oil telling him to lose your title right in front, not sure how this was going to go. And we're all done, and he comes up on the stage and he's making the presentations, and they call me up and they give me a gift as a presentation. And I turn to him and I go, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Right? Almost have the international incident right there. And he looks at me and goes, "Well, I'm not a majesty, but didn't you say we should lose our titles?" And I went, "Whew, that was good." But these are the things we reflect upon: the good times, the difficult times, the memories that we gain from them are the memories that help shape us, that help shape others. We use them to move forward. When you reflect upon your past, when you reflect upon your journey, whether it's in Toastmasters, your career, your life, don't think about the things that you've lost. Don't focus on the challenges that you faced. Focus on the opportunities that you had, the things you learned, and how you grew. We can all focus on the negative side way too much sometimes. But if we flip the coin over, the good times are just on the opposite side. It's up to each and every one of us to look for those. It's up to each and every one of us to reflect in the mirror and think about who we are, what we are, and where we came from. But not to focus on the past, just to use it as an opportunity to learn. Think about this as a final thought, because I know we're going to have some Q&A, but think about this for a final thought. For those of you who drive or have ever been in a car, the rearview mirror is very small because it doesn't want you reflecting on the past. It just wants to remind you of where you've been. The windshield of your car is very large because your future is in front of you. Your past is just a reminder. Your future is wide open, and it's up to you to enjoy that journey to whatever that destination is in the horizon. Take the side street every once in a while. Enjoy the scenery. Enjoy the view. And don't rush through it. Reflections are a great thing to have. Memories are something that no one can take away from you. And neither can they take away your experiences. It's up to you to enjoy them. MCLE. Wow. Hey, that rhymes. Look, we've got MCLE.
Oh, yes, yes. Thanks a lot, International President Richard Peck. That was kind of a spiritual counseling for everybody listening. Thank you very much. Round of applause for our international president. Let me tell everybody here that I have a lot of questions, but the international president has limited time frame which he has given us. So I'm going to ask as much as possible till the timer shows me red, or the international president just switches off his screen. So I'll read the questions as received. It might sound like proofreading, but excuse me for that. The first question, International President Richard Peck, the first question is, how to overcome the fear of failure while serving any role? And this comes from an officer who is actually going to start her role as a VP education of a club. So this is very important for her to know how to overcome the fear of failure while serving any role.
Well, that's a great question. And the fear of failure is something that is in all of us, I think. But as you heard, I tend to look at things a little differently. So failure is something that we put upon ourselves. We say we failed. What I like to say is, if I tried something and it wasn't as successful as I wanted it to be, and I learned from it, it's not a failure. It's just an opportunity to change an approach to doing things. And we talk about Thomas Edison and trying to invent the light bulb 9,999 times, and he didn't. He didn't invent it till the 10,000th time. And they said, well, you failed 9,999 times. He said, no, I didn't. I just found 9,999 ways not to make a light bulb. Right? In each and everything we do, it's going to have or should have some level of success. But for us to ourselves, it's a failure because it didn't reach the goal. So if your goal as vice president of education is to have 10 people achieve a path this year, and that's your goal, and only one does, for you, that's a failure because you didn't reach the 10. But think about the positive aspect of it in the fact that one person grew and you were able to change one person's life. Additionally, don't try to do it on your own. Work with others, work with mentors to help provide you other perspective. Leaders sometimes have this need to try to do things on their own because they think that's what a leader does. Well, lead means you're in front of something, and a ship is a vessel which transports others. So you can't do things on your own when you just think about the word leadership. And that's the way that I would approach it. And Ali was with me in Washington, D.C. when I failed to become second vice president the first time. And I didn't look at it. I looked at it as a failure at the moment. But as I reflected upon it, I realized it wasn't a failure in that regard, that there was a learning opportunity there for it. So think about your expectations and really think about what the outcome is for you. But look at what the plus and the positives are.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do remember the Washington episode, and while our president was walking on the stage, I was telling my colleagues next to me, if there is going to be Terminator Part 5 or 6, this man walks like a Terminator, and James Cameron is surely going to hire him. So the next question is, how new Toastmasters and non-Toastmasters understand the beauty of Toastmasters' journey to enhance their skills as they supposed to start their journey in leadership and effective communicator within 7 minutes to inspire the audience. Now I'm going to read this again in parts.
Okay.
As I said, I'm reading it as I received. How new Toastmasters and non-Toastmasters understand the beauty of Toastmasters' journey to enhance their skills as they are supposed to start their journey in leadership and effective communication with 7 minutes to inspire the audience, Mr. President?
So it sounds to me like we're looking at how we can inspire people within a 7-minute time frame, a speech, right? A 5 to 7 minute speech, it sounds like, and how we share that story. So I'll tell you the best way that I found, and it took me, let's see, I've been a Toastmaster for going on 15 years. It took me about 13 and a half years to figure this out. So it's, it's taken me a little while. Vulnerability, sharing your story, but being able to be a little bit vulnerable and have an emotional connection with people is what brings them in. People, new members, non-members, if they can connect with you through the story that you're telling, that's what captures them. That's what brings them in. You have to find a way to look at what they're trying to accomplish in their journey. What I learned in 2016 when I lost that election was that I was trying to take people on my journey and not taking them on their journey. So no one wants to go on your journey with you unless it's the same journey. They want to go on theirs. So you're sharing a story that will connect with them and allow them to go on their journey, will allow that connection. And it doesn't have to be 7 minutes. You can do it like that if there's a common story there, if there's a common thread. Past international president Robert Barnhill used to say, sing your story, sing your story. And we all have one. We're just sometimes uncertain of how much vulnerability we want to give. But that's what connects to people. Vulnerability connects with people, believe it or not.
Wow, it's getting hotter. That's wonderful. Now, this question comes from a Toastmaster who has put his name in the text itself. That's DTM Fitta. I believe he's still here somewhere. Recently, I witnessed, this is what he says, recently I witnessed lack of cooperation between the district trio. Is there any chance that the rule will be changed in such a way that the district director will be elected and then he or she can select his CGD and PQD to create a better harmony to progress? Mr. President?
That question is full of traps as to what the future looks like and whether it will actually lead to harmony or not. And I think there's some risk there. I do think that being able to pick your team has merit, but we've also seen where it is teams are picked because they're friends. And we have that aspect where we're getting individuals who are on a team because we've known them for a long time, we're comfortable with them, but do they have the skills? Or are we providing them a role because, well, we told them if we were ever in a role, we'd give them one. So I think there's merit, but I think there's also risk. So I don't want to talk about the district not getting along, district leaders not getting along. I don't think this is the forum to air that type of situation out. But what a district may want to think about going forward, if we feel that this is the right way, why not let the division directors pick their area directors and see if it works at that level, or whether there's conflict there? Because we know that that there's sometimes in that division and area level piece, there's a little bit of conflict as well. But if we think that picking your own team will allow for a better opportunity, why not let our division directors do that and see if it works?
Wow, that's a very thought-provoking answer. I mean, that happens in many districts. Mr. President, district leaders always enjoyed traveling to the convention, and this motivated them to run for these positions. Now that that's not the option, what's your recommendation? Do they still apply for these positions?
Oh, now that's an interesting question, Ali, because what that question implies is that motivation is by the reward they're receiving. And the motivation isn't by what they're being able to do for others. So that for me is a little bit of a disconnect in the way I look at leadership, because leaders should be there to help others achieve their goals, to help others be better than they think they can, reach farther than they think they can, regardless of the reward at the end of the day. Right? The reward should be personal satisfaction. The reward should be what you did for others, not necessarily what you get. I didn't get to go to convention this year. I didn't get to travel to districts this year as the international president. Should I have just thrown my hands up in the air and say, I don't want to be international president, I'm not going to get any of this? No, my reward is being able to help others. My reward is being able to reach out to a community that needs to be connected. It has nothing to do with what's at the end. And as I've stated earlier, it shouldn't be the title that's driving you to do this. It should be your desire to help others that's doing it. I often, and I've been asking this question lately, I'm referred to as International President Richard Peck. And of course, I tell everybody, just call me Richard. But should it just be Richard Peck, International President? Is the title first, or is the person first? And the title second? Because titles go away. People don't. So it shouldn't be your title. It shouldn't be what you're trying to get out of it from a monetary value, reward value. And I know that's a driver for some people, but it should be about what you're giving back to others. Think about those that came before you that gave to you without expectation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Since I can see the red light on and I got the indication from the timer already, I'll stop taking more questions here, but there are two questions, Mr. President, if you would want to take them as rapid fire.
Sure, go ahead, Ali. I'll try to answer as best as I can in rapid fire mode.
Sure. But the question is too long. I'll try to read that fast, just like go-karting, the race which you love. Gray areas are testing ground for one's values. Gray areas are not usually a right versus wrong scenario, but a right versus right scenario. How should leaders be trained to deal with such issues?
That's a great question. And I think the only way to answer that is to be able to evaluate it based on situation, because gray areas are just that, gray areas. And there are so many of, it's funny, there are not as many of them as you think they are, but people seem to find more of them than there are. So you can't just say this is the way to approach gray areas. The core four values, look at the core four values, see which weighs out the most important in there. But gray areas is not something that you can just answer and say this is the way to approach it. It has to be situational.
Excellent. Mr. President, what is your advice to members that take part in leadership role, XCOM, area, division, district, while still being a beginner in Toastmasters?
My question is, does age or time in an organization dictate what your experience is and what you can bring? Or is it the individual who has a skill set that they can bring? So I don't always get hung up on, I'm new to the organization. Let's be honest. A brand new chartered club, somebody is going to be the president of a brand new chartered club. Day one. They're going to be a leader on day one. So we already have seen that the length of time in an organization doesn't necessarily dictate your success or your knowledge. My belief on leadership and individuals that I like to find and put into roles, and your president is a perfect example. I look for people with passion. I can train everything else. I can train people on just about everything else. I cannot train them on passion. So if I have somebody who's passionate about doing a role, and I provide them mentoring and provide them mentors, then that's what we do. That's how we grow people. We just don't say, but you're too young, you can't do it. Who are we to judge that? So if they're passionate and we can provide a way to help grow the skills, to help nurture them, I think that's the key, not the age.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe, DTM Ram, that also answers your question on vision of new leaders. So I'll stop here. Let's shift those questions to PIP John if possible, because time is already up and we had a limited time given to us by the World Headquarters. Mr. President, thanks a lot for joining us today. It was a sure pleasure. We know we troubled you a lot to get the scheduling done. You're very busy and you gave us your time. It means a lot to us.
Well, Ali and President Khalid and the rest of the members here, and past President John Greiner, who's in the room as well. I wouldn't be here without you. I wouldn't be here without your guidance, your mentoring, your support. I started out just like each and every one of you in a seat fearful of giving a table topics answer. And it's the journey that gets us to where we are. So thank you for everything you've done to help support me over the years.
Thank you, International President.
DTM Ali, just a small gesture of appreciation certificate, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Mr. International President, here is a small gesture of appreciation from our side, Club President and CGD Khalid. Could that be displayed? Round of applause to our International President, DTM Richard Peck.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much, DTM Richard.
So
Mr. President, with your permission, can I please display one more thing that we really should show everybody?
You're cool.
There you go. Is my screen visible? No.
I can see still the certificate.
Okay.
Probably you need to unshare and then share again.
I probably need to, yes. Okay,
there
you
have an
go.
idea what's coming up. Oh, yes.
This had to be displayed. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Back to you, sir.
Oh, memories. Thank you, International President, DTM Richard Peck again. I see some great comments coming in the chat and some are amazing. Actually, all are good. So I tried to read as much as possible, searching between questions, and I saw some great quotes, some great taglines by members. Wonderful. Now, this was 2021, and now we go towards having a blast from the past. Not so past, it's recent past. I had the opportunity to talk to the next person, of course, a past international president, and he's a man of few words. He has this love to enhance the corporate experience in Toastmasters International Corporate Club experience. So a small introduction which I could pull out from his LinkedIn account. A mechanical engineer by qualification, he had a successful career as a global product support executive for Caterpillar. Now, how many of you are aware of Caterpillars? I used to wear Caterpillar shoes a lot during my school and college days. And of course, we see Caterpillar machines all around the city. I see many people saying yes. He ventured into consulting after that. Presently, he's the president of JRG Consulting. During his tenure as international president, his motto was Toastmasters, changing lives one at a time. Toastmasters, changing lives one at a time. With a huge round of applause, let's welcome past international president, DTM John Greener. DTM John Greener. And I'll just read his topic title, Leadership, What is it? Leadership, What is it? DTM John.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning and good afternoon or good evening. It's wonderful to see an audience from around the world attending this meeting. As I was preparing for this occasion, I had to think back about the last time that I had some close affiliation with your part of the world. And it goes back a long ways, actually probably before many of you were even Toastmasters. In fact, I know it was before many of you were even Toastmasters. In May of 2004, I was invited to go to the District 79P. That is a provisional district. 79 was not even a district at that point in time, to their conference. And I have to tell you, I was amazed when I got there. There were 57 clubs in District 79P at the time. And when I got there, there were 700 Toastmasters in attendance at the district conference. 700. It was amazing. They were from all 7 countries in the Middle East that were represented at that time. And it was just an absolutely wonderful sight to see everyone there together working to achieve their goals and the goals of our organization, Toastmasters International. Of course, what's happened since then, you all know, and it's very much of it is because of the leadership that you have provided to grow Toastmasters in your part of the world to what it is today. So I'm really proud to be here today talking about leadership, because I think leadership is the key. That's how we grow. That's what we depend on to make our organization what it is and what it can become. So I want to talk a little bit about leadership today. What is it? Why do we talk about it so much? And why is it so hard to understand what it is? Well, there's a funny thing about leadership. You know, it's hard to define. Nobody seems to really become able to come up with a good, straightforward definition of what leadership is. But it seems like we all know leadership when we see it, right? We see that person come into the room, they instantly grab our attention. We instantly know that they are a leader. They have that charisma. They have those characteristics of a leader that attract our attention and convince us that we want to follow them wherever they take us. What is it about that leader? Well, they've got an aptitude for leadership, perhaps when they were born. But we all know that leaders aren't born, they're made. And we've seen thousands of leaders from our organization who are made. If we want to understand a little more about leadership, maybe we need to look at some of the successful leaders in the past. And one of them that I like to talk about occasionally is the legendary coach of the Green Bay Packers, Vince Lombardi. That's football team here in the United States. And of course, football is a little different than Toastmasters because people are paid and the coaches are paid. We're not. We're here because of our love, our passion, our interest in the organization, and our leadership development for ourselves. But we can still learn something, I think, by looking at someone like Vince Lombardi. What was it that made that man so successful? And what was it that made that team so successful? Well, there was an interesting story floating around about an enterprising young sports writer who decided one day that he wanted to try to understand what it was about Vince Lombardi that made him as successful as he was. And he decided that the best way to find that out would be to go talk to Vince Lombardi's wife, because she lived with him and she knew what he was really like. So maybe there was something to learn from talking with her. And he did. He managed to get an interview with her. And so he sat and talked with her at length. And this is what she said. This is the story that she shared. She said, you know, she said on Monday, after, even regardless of how the game turned out on Sunday, on Monday, he was impossible to live with. He was difficult. He was stubborn. He was hard to get along with. He was absolutely impossible to put up with. He was demanding. Then on Tuesday, things were almost the same. They had endless drills with the team to get ready for their next team that they were facing. Wednesday, things might got a little bit better. Thursday, maybe a little better. Friday, you can almost talk to him. Saturday, they might even go out for dinner on Saturday evening. And then here's the amazing part. On Sunday, on the way to the game, Vince Lombardi was downright friendly. He was even affable. He was easy to talk to and fun to talk to. So one day she said, I don't get it. She says, we're headed off to what could be the biggest game of the year, and you're laughing and joking and talking and having a good time here with me. I don't get it. Tell me what it is, why this happens. So here's what Vince said, and I think it boils down to the essence of leadership. He said simply, and I quote, at this point, I've done everything I can to prepare them. The game is now in their hands. They're on the field, and only they can execute the game plan. And they believe they can win. I think that in those simple statements, Vince Lombardi defined the essence of leadership. Now, we're not the same in Toastmasters because we don't get paid. We don't have thousands of people on our support staff, but we still learn about leadership, and we still do the same basic things that we just talked about there. How do people outside of Toastmasters learn about leadership? Some of you might say, well, if they were in Toastmasters, they would learn about leadership. They wouldn't have to read books. They wouldn't have to do the other things that they do to learn about leadership. I think back to the late 70s and early 80s when an individual by the name of Tom Peters, who is a Golden Gavel winner, by the way, for those of you that may not recall that, he wrote a book called In Search of Excellence. That started a number of other writers, got them started writing books about leadership. And his main point was that he went in and looked at a bunch of successful corporations and successful leaders. And he basically implied that if we just simply emulated those leaders, we could all become successful leaders. Well, we already know in Toastmasters that doesn't work because we're all individuals, right? We're all our own thing. And each of us, just as we have to learn to communicate our own way, we also have to learn to lead our own way. So we knew that wasn't going to work. And finally, the world figured that out too, and they began to dismiss some of what was being written at that point in time. About that same time, there was a couple of professors in Southern California, Kouzes and Posner, who wrote a book called The Leadership Challenge. They had a completely different approach. Their approach was, instead of asking the leaders about what made them successful, they asked the followers, what kind of traits and characteristics do you really admire in your leaders? What could we learn if we just asked the followers what they admired and learned and liked in their leaders? And they did a survey, they did endless research and work on all of this, and what they came up with was this book called The Leadership Challenge. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend that you do. It is very easy reading, it's fun reading, and I just happen to have a copy of it here. I'll show you what it looks like. This is about the 5th edition of the book, and I'll just tell you that it's worth every minute you spend reading the book. Why do I say that? Well, a lot of what's in this book is very similar to what we do in Toastmasters. So I think you'll find a lot of similarities between what they talk about and what we talk about in Toastmasters. We use those principles to accomplish our goals. We structure our training programs to develop the characteristics and traits in our leaders that we think our members want and need. Those leaders, such as your part of the world, that learn those lessons well, become successful. I took the liberty of looking at the Distinguished Club Plan for your club. And guess what I discovered? You are already President's Distinguished. Congratulations. Wow, what an accomplishment already. Big hand for everyone involved in getting that done. That is a wonderful accomplishment in these times when things are tough around the world. Now it's time to start looking ahead to the new year, right? Because you've already accomplished President's Distinguished this year. So what is going to happen this next year? Well, as International President Peck said, there are a lot of things that happened over the last several years that have upset the apple cart. Things are different than they have been, than they were. So what does a leader do? Well, they have to assess the situation. They have to figure out what's different this year than it was last year. They have to look at what's going to happen and anticipate the things that might be different and make changes. They have to be looking out that windshield that Richard referred to, not in the rearview mirror, but out in front. So what do we see out there? Well, golly, gee whiz, here we are today. We're on a virtual meeting. 2 years ago, this would not have happened. So what does this mean to us? Well, let's think about it for a minute. I guess people from around the world could join a club anywhere in the world that's open and is virtually connected, right? Of course they could. What about people that might want to leave their trouble club and seek out a high quality club? Easy to do now, right? Might not have been so easy yesterday. What about those people that want to shop for quality clubs online? We've already seen some of that happen. They might seek out a club that is culturally attractive, or they might seek a club that gives them the opportunity to practice a language that they don't otherwise speak. Or they might seek out a club that focuses on a certain pathway. They might even try to find a club that can help them directly enhance their career. So the world is different than it has been, and the opportunities are different than they have been, and the leadership requirements could be different than they have been. So this is the time when leaders need to take advantage of the tools that we have. Most of you know about Moments of Truth. Obviously, most of you know about the Club Success Plan. And the Distinguished Club Program is how we measure our success. Well, it's time to look ahead and use those tools to assess what might happen to our clubs. I don't know what the club of tomorrow might look like. It could look completely different than it does today because of all these factors that are changing and that have changed. It's up to us as leaders to say to ourselves, what is going on? How are we going to adapt to whatever is going on? And how are we going to make our club successful in the face of continual change, continual really uproar is what it's been over this last year. So the clock's running, and it's time now to think about starting the new year. Training is going to start very soon, and you got to think about what's going to happen in this new year. Then, as the saying goes, the ball will be in your court. If you've reviewed your club status, you've taken into account all these things that we've talked about here, looked at your members' needs, and redefined and set up the tools, use the tools that you have available to you, you will be successful again. And that's what we hope happens. And I think in the process of doing this, you'll learn the same things that Vince Lombardi learned, and that is you need to adapt to what is going on. You need to make changes to deal with what happens. Not every week, because of course football is different, every team is different, and you have to adapt to the team every week. But for us, it's every year, And I would say then also add that we have a district team that is out there to help you make minor adjustments as you go through the year, just as the football team has coaches to make minor adjustments as they go through the game. Take all this, put it together, you can be successful, and you will be successful if you do what needs to be done using what leadership is all about. So let me paraphrase what Vince Lombardi might say to us in Toastmasters. At this point, do everything you can to prepare yourself for the challenges of the New Year's game. The game's now in your hands. You'll be on the field, and only you can execute the game plan. And you believe you can win. So let's go make it happen. A year from now, we can be celebrating again another Super Bowl and again achieving President's Distinguished District. Thank you for your attention today. I want to really thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning and to share the stage here with President-elect. He and I go back a long ways. I remember some discussions with him, and they were wonderful. I can personally tell you that he is a wonderful leader, and I look forward to many years as he passes into the annals of a past president of discussing and talking Toastmasters with him. So thank you for the opportunity to share with you this morning, and now I will return control to our Toastmaster and entertain any questions you might have.
Thank you, past international president, John, DTM John. How many of you enjoyed Sir John's accent? Wasn't it like those Hollywood movies? That's how I felt when I first interacted with him. So we'll go down to the questions. There are some coming in. Mr. VP Education, DTM Farhas, Mr. President, DTM Khalid, please, if
Yes.
you could send me the questions directly as well, that's
Sure.
fine.
I just
Because
sent you one.
I took many and I might stop looking at the window now. Yeah. Once an international president and always an international president. This is what Deepak Menon, our immediate past international president, told us when we were finishing our term as region advisor last term. He gave us this final speech to the region advisors team, and he told us, once a region advisor, always a region advisor. So to make it easy, International President John, Moments of Truth. It's a very good document, a very good tool, which you mentioned. But at times, when we conduct Moments of Truth, it ends up in a blame game kind of scenario, and we don't reach anywhere. How do we tackle that situation, Mr. President?
Well, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. That really is a good question. I think it depends on how you set the stage for this execution of this Moments of Truth. It can become a blame game, but whoever is in charge and whoever's leading the meeting has to set the tone at the beginning of the meeting as to what is expected. We in Toastmasters are positive people, and we try very hard to maintain a positive outlook on things, and we should be learning how to phrase our questions, our comments in a positive way. If we haven't learned that skill, then someone needs to point that out, and somebody needs to be leading the Moments of Truth that has the skill to be able to do that. So yes, I hate to think that we would throw away a tool as good as Moments of Truth simply because someone happens to use an inappropriate evaluation technique or an inappropriate comment. It is a highly valuable tool, but it depends on how it's managed and how it's used and how you treat it. So I don't know an easier answer. There may be other tools, other ways to do this with surveys or other kinds of ways of doing this, but there is no substitute for good, solid conversation about what's going on in the club and what member goals are. And as long as it's conducted in a positive manner, in a positive way, then I think the end goal will be achieved.
Great. Past international precedent. Being a leader of a group, you are having 10 to 12 members in your team. I think this question is more like a scenario. Being a leader of a group, you're having 10 to 12 members in your team. There is a difference of opinion among the members. Each one of them is right in their own way. How do you manage such situation? PIP John?
Well, thank you again for that question. That is really, to me, that's a positive question, because there's so much value in having differences of opinion and making sure that we all get our thoughts expressed. We all come from different backgrounds and from different places and from different experience bases. So we have a different thought about a particular issue or a particular thing that's under discussion. And there is value in bringing all of us together and, again, maintaining the right decorum and the right approach to managing this. So it all boils down, really, in my mind, to managing the discussion and allowing everyone to be heard. There's a thing we call parliamentary procedure. You're all familiar with it to some degree. And we don't have to know about parliamentary procedure. We just have to know and understand the basic fundamentals of parliamentary procedure. One of those is that everyone, the minority and all, have a chance to be heard, and heard in a positive way. So that, to me, is the issue here. It again boils down to, how do you manage this? And that's what we're about in Toastmasters. We're a positive organization. We try to manage these situations, or learn to manage these situations, in a way that we get the positive outcome that we want. So is there always going to be some negative Nelly? Some of you probably don't even know what that means. But yeah, there is. There could be a negative Nelly, somebody that's difficult, somebody that's awkward, somebody that's makes life hard for everyone else. You need to learn the skills to be able to manage and lead through situations like that. I know of no other way. This is the best organization in the world to be able to do that, to learn those skills. We need to learn those skills. And when we expect a difficult situation, we should seek out those leaders that have those skills to help manage us and lead us through those situations where there could be conflict and difficulties.
Great. The next question, PIP John. Can a good, seems like an important one, but I see some great sensitive stuff here. Can a good leader have immoral or bad private morality? Is it possible for these to be separate or different, or must they be in harmony and alignment? So what I understand is one face in the public, one face in the private. So is that okay in leadership? PIP John.
Well, thank you for that question. I think the obvious answer to everyone is no, it's not okay. As I referred to this study that was done by Kouzes and Posner, and interestingly enough, the number one item that came back from all the people that they surveyed by a wide margin was leader integrity, somebody that they believed, somebody that they knew would be telling them the truth. And so they basically said, we're going to throw aside all these other discussions, and we're going to basically say that everything about leadership depends on having integrity. If you don't have integrity, then there is no point in talking about these other things that you ask about. It is so important that we can believe and have confidence in our leaders and what they're going to say and what they're going to do based on what they say. That all centers around integrity. So yes, the answer to me is integrity is the cornerstone. There's no other thing that we should really be thinking about until we get that established and we know that our leaders have integrity. Then we start looking at skills and talents and characteristics of our leaders and pick the ones that we know will lead us to where we want to go to.
Great. And sure, integrity is, of course, the topmost, even when we look at the values in Toastmasters International. The next question, PIP John. How does a leader decide what is best for the greater good, the mission of the organization, What if some of their followers or others must suffer for this to be achieved? So how does a leader decides what is the best for the greater good? What if some of their followers or others must suffer for this to be achieved? PIP John?
Well, thank you for that question. Yeah, that's another good question. It's probably one that has haunted many boards and many leaders, because there is no easy answer to some questions. And there is no guarantee that everyone is going to come out with roses, so to speak, in their corner. It is entirely possible that everyone will have to compromise to some degree, and some might be hurt a little bit for the greater good of all. So the question is, how do you find out what that greater good of all is? And again, I think I go back to making sure you connect and work with a wide range of people, those that represent all the different interests and all the different voices that are out there. And the idea is at least listen to what is going on and then make an intelligent decision based on what's good for the organization. When you look at some of the way countries legislate and manage their business, you have representatives from different states, different provinces, different parts of the country. In Toastmasters, we have people from regions, but they don't represent the region. They represent the organization. They think at an organizational level. So we are distinctly different from governments of the world. And I think that is one of the pluses of Toastmasters, is that we think from an organizational standpoint. We think about what's good and best for the organization first, not so much satisfying the people that are in our own little corner of the world. We think about what's good for the organization. We do that by listening to everyone, gathering all the input that we can, and then making an intelligent decision, as I said, based on that input. Are they always going to be right? Of course not, because nothing is ever always right. But we do the best we can, and if we don't get it right, then we change it when the time comes and it becomes apparent that something needs to be changed. Mr. Toastmaster.
Yeah. Thanks, PIP John. With time, has leadership really changed over the years? With time, has leadership really changed over the years? PIP John.
Wow. Well, of course. I mean, you bet it has changed. Leadership is a result of the people that are involved, and leadership, as you know, is limited by the vision of those who are leading us. So as we get leaders that have great vision, and we try to multiply that by using the vision of others to augment that vision, so we develop the broadest possible vision, we hope to establish continuity. We hope to establish a future, a vision of the future, of where we're going, what we're going to do, when we're going to get there. That doesn't always work. It depends on the vision and how effective we are at doing what I just said. I like to think that we're getting better at that, but I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, because we're in the middle of a lot of change in the world right now. And we were on a growth pattern for years and years and years in Toastmasters. So some people might look back and say, well, we had better leaders in the past. No, that might not be true, because the challenges and the circumstances were different back then than they are now. And the opportunities were different back then than they are now. We didn't have a pandemic. We didn't have all the changes going on. We didn't have the business pressures that we have today on our corporate clubs. We didn't have all the things going on that make life a little more difficult for us than it was 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So situations change. You could argue that with the more difficult situations, we have to have better leadership today. And I think we do. So we need to be seeking those individuals who really do have the kind of vision that we need to lead us through these difficult times and set us direction for us to assure that our future gets back on a really solid growth pattern, and we can continue to grow the organization to its full potential. Don't know the answer, but I think things have changed, and I hope that answers the question.
Oh, sure, PIP John, that's a very strong opinion from your side. And I'm sure the questioner would be content with the response you gave. The next question is probably a question in a very happening question these days. PIP John, does the does Pathways give more potential for Toastmasters to be more effective than before? PIP John?
Thank you again for that question. Well, I suppose everyone has a lot of opinions about Pathways, and I know we had some startup issues, difficulties with introduction with Pathways, and some people have taken a negative look at Pathways because of that. But as I'm starting to see what's happening with Pathways, I do like what's starting to happen with Pathways. So this is my opinion. It doesn't represent the world. You'll have to talk to a bunch of other people to get their opinions, but here's what I think is happening with Pathways. I like what's happening. In my club, I belong to 8 clubs right now, but in one of them, we accomplish a level almost at every single meeting. And the reason is because we have 5 speakers at every meeting, and we are cranking through those Pathways like you wouldn't believe. So we get a recognition at almost every meeting. And the net result is people are excited, they're enthused. I remember the times when we had the CC manual. You had to give 10 speeches to get there. Some clubs said, okay, we'll give you recognition at halftime after 5 speeches, but that wasn't official, okay? Now you're officially recognized in Pathways, and people like it. Whether you believe it or not, I don't care if you're a graduate and senior in high school or if you're an adult. People like to be recognized, and when you accomplish something and you point that out to them, they get this big grin on their face, and they love it. We can do that now in Pathways, and we do that in Pathways. And the net result is, I think there's more enthusiasm for the educational program today in Pathways, in spite of all the difficulties and the startup challenges we've had and the issues associated with the digital conversion to our educational program. There's a lot of opportunity yet to be grasped and yet to be grabbed with Pathways. I think our biggest issue with Pathways is we have not communicated what the real value of that program is well to the rest of the world, and in particular to corporate clubs and corporations. If they just knew and understood what really is in Pathways, I think we would see a major revolution here in adoption and acceptance of Pathways. And what will follow, of course, is that we will get the issues with Pathways sorted out, and eventually it will become a world-class program. It already is from a true educational and developmental standpoint, but from execution and operation standpoint, that's a different question. We still have work to do.
Wow, we have a PIP saying that to us. That's wonderful. When PIP John, when an organization grows, there is a possibility for core values to get diluted. How could this be managed during periods of rapid growth? PIP John.
Well, that's a great question too. And I would add to that sometimes there's cultural changes take place in the world that can also challenge our values. And I think that probably is more of a driver than the other things that we were talking about here just a minute ago. And let me give you some examples here. As it turns out, and I didn't put this in my bio, but I am the co-chair this year of the disciplinary committee, this year and last year, of the International Disciplinary Committee. And trust me, we have seen some of the craziest cases, some of the craziest things going on in Toastmasters that challenge our values. The disciplinary committee only gets those cases that are difficult, the ones that don't fall into or are covered already by policy, by bylaws, and our Constitution. So we get the ones that are difficult, and they're always the ones that end up challenging our value system. So we face this every day, and what I see happening is there are people out there whose values have changed. They want to get a DTM because they want to put it on their LinkedIn resume, or they want to put it on their job resume, or they want to do something. We have seen people come to Toastmasters, they get their DTM, and then they leave once they get it on their resume. That is not what we want to have happen here, because we like to think that once we put the time and the effort into developing an individual to be a leader and be a real leader, that you'll stay with the organization, you'll give back to the organization simply because you're passionate about Toastmasters, you understand how it can change people's lives, and you are committed to help others change their lives for the better. That's what should happen. There are people who don't do that. They cut corners. We had one case, and I'll just be open with you about this, where someone, I think, accomplished 5 pathways in the matter of a couple of weeks. Well, the argument was they had stacked a bunch of this stuff up behind the scenes and didn't enter it into the system. They did it all in one time. Well, maybe that happened, maybe it didn't, I don't know. But at the end of the day, there's lots of evidence that there are problems. And so this particular individual was disciplined by the disciplinary committee. And there are others out there who do those kind of things. One of the reasons we have a disciplinary committee, I guess, is to send a message to others around the world that this kind of behavior is not acceptable. And so if you probably don't hear much about what the disciplinary committee does, but if you hear about it, you will know that there's a reason. The reason is that there's been some values that have been challenged, and there have been some values that have value stories that have been broken, so to speak, and it's not acceptable. So the disciplinary committee is tasked with making sure that doesn't happen. And I don't know the answer. We just have to maintain the values that we have and make sure that we enforce those values, because there is no other way to easily answer those questions. I hope that helps answer that question.
Some good insights, PIP John, and finishing 5 parts in just few days. I mean, that person should be the first cousin of Superman or Batman. Actually, Superman can do it. So the next question revolves around judges, and I would like to ask the questioner to switch on the camera so I can see his expression. I won't take the name. So that's a famous question from one of our friends in most of the conferences. So it's PIP John's turn today to give his opinion about it. The question is, judges have integrity and are trusted. So why should we hide them? So judges have integrity and are trusted. So why hide them? PIP John.
Thank you for that question. I think the question is not so much about really hiding them because of a lack of integrity. It's more hiding them because this is not an evaluation situation. This is a contest. And so being a competitive situation, contestants don't like to lose. Nobody likes to lose, right? So when it's done and they haven't won, they want to know, what is it about this? Why didn't I win? And they seek out somebody that can answer that question for them. I think we would all like to do that, but this is a speech contest. This is not an evaluation. This is a speech contest. And so in order to protect judges from someone who is maybe upset because they didn't win, from challenging them or asking them in great detail about what is it about that I did that you didn't like, or maybe you liked, whatever, we just choose not to let everyone know who the judges are. And the idea is that keeps people who might be upset from going after those who could, they're the only ones that can really answer the question as to why they didn't win.
Mm-hmm. I hope the questioner is quite happy with the response. I'm not sure. I see the head nodding there. Maybe you could take it up later with PIP John or any international president. Thank you, PIP John. The last 2 questions, and I apologize, we cannot take more questions due to time. The last 2 questions. Why do why do we Toastmasters approve the project delivered by any speaker, even though if the speech does not meet requirements? Why do we don't reject and ask the speaker to deliver it again? PIP John?
Well, thank you for that question. This is an old question. It's been around probably since the beginning of Toastmasters, really. And I can tell you, being a Toastmaster for over 48 years now, that this used to happen years and years and years ago. There were clubs who basically didn't pass a speaker, and they basically told them you had to go back and redo the speech. It's generated a lot of discussion and a lot of debate, and well, should we do this or should we not do this? And I think the belief that we have evolved to here as we've gone through the years is that regardless whether you meet a standard as defined by someone, whoever that someone is, you learned something. You learned something in the process of giving that speech. You got better. And Toastmasters is not, we don't certify anybody. We don't stand up and say, yes, you met a certain standard. All we can really say at the beginning of the day is you started at this level, you went through the program, and you're better now than you were when you started. Are we all going to be at some level? No. But we're all going to be better if we follow the program and go through the projects than we were when we started. I don't know any better answer until we get to a certification process. The closest thing we would have to that today would be the accredited speaker program, where there are standards. You have to meet a standard in the accredited speaker program, but not in your day-to-day club operations. That would be very difficult, and we could end up with a lot of debate and discussion about what those standards are, who passes, who didn't pass, and who decides what those standards are, and how do we enforce getting something like that to happen. So it has evolved now to just simply what I said, and that is, you come in here at this level, and when you leave, you're better. You may not be here, but you're better than you were when you came in. I hope that answers the question.
Sure, PIP John. This was supposed to be the last question, but there is there is a heavy request to ask one more, so please bear with me, PIP John. How about an individual Toastmaster putting in all efforts to help the community to the greatest level, but still due to a few people around trying to pull that individual down? How does that individual handle these kind of politics? PIP John?
Thank you. Thank you for that question. Well, of course, that again is a difficult situation. And I think the way to handle something like that is, when you are going into a situation like that, you need to anticipate what is going to happen. You need, after you have some experience in Toastmasters, you know which way the wind is blowing, so to speak, and you know which way the tide is flowing. So when you go into a meeting or a situation where there's going to be conflict and there's going to be pushback against your position, there are a lot of ways to deal with that. One would be that you would spend time up front gathering support and doing things to help change the nature, the nature of the discussion, or to bring other people to help support where you're coming from, or to do some work in the background that will change the whole context of whatever is under discussion. There are a lot of ways to deal with that. I'm not sure. I mean, that could be a subject of a whole seminar, how to deal with political kinds of situations. And I'm not sure I can answer the question in 2 minutes here. But in essence, you have to be aware of what's going on. You have to be prepared and make sure that you have gathered forces that support you and at least give you a chance to be successful as you go into a conflict or difficult situation, be it political or otherwise. Sorry for not having a better answer, but that's about as good as I can do in 2 minutes here.
Sure. One last question, PIP John, but before we go there, Sergey at Arms, Mr. President, I feel we are getting Zoom bombed from members or some unknown people from around the world. Is that being taken care of? Could you show me a thumbs up? There are some not very good chats and people have left.
That's taken care of. That's taken care of, Mr. C.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is digital era and we are prone to such things. Sorry for the inconvenience. Mr. PIPJ, past international president, the last concern from my side was, this is something for which I have noticed. Corporates, some corporate clubs are very healthy. They have no problem at all, but still they don't survive. Is it something related to the sponsors and mentors of these corporate clubs? Have you experienced something like that that you can share with us?
Thank you for that question. Yes, of course, I come from a corporate environment. I spent 41 years at Caterpillar working in management, and mostly management, and some at various levels. And I think from my experience in Toastmasters and in the corporation, what happens is that many corporate clubs are started because someone at a middle management position is excited, enthused, they're passionate about Toastmasters. And they may go and they may get permission, they get the okay from someone at a middle management position to start a club. And that works fine, but there really isn't support from higher levels or even from the HR department in the corporation. And the net result is the club is at risk simply because people come in corporations, they change, they move to a different job. And when they do, that support may no longer be there. When that support disappears in the middle management side of things at the club, at the corporation, so does the club. It just disappears. The way around that, and of course, I mean, you and I have talked a little bit about this, but the way around that is, I think, to build better support at a higher level of the organization. I think, as I said earlier with Pathways, we have a gem here that is uncovered, that has not been truly exposed yet at this point. If some of our corporate CEOs and higher level people understood the power of Pathways and what we can ultimately do with Pathways, we wouldn't have to be saying to each other that Toastmasters is the best kept secret in the world. There'd be people out there who would say, yes, we agree with that. We see the impact of what you're doing. We see the impact of what we all know, how Toastmasters can change our lives. They would understand that. Today, they don't. If you want corporations to support us, we have to get them convinced that we do change people's lives. And in the process, we would benefit the corporation in a big way. If we had that level of support at a higher level, we would be highly successful in corporate environments. We're not today because we don't have that approach.
That's some great insights. There's just one final request, PIP John. I wanted to stop, but there is a Toastmaster from an amazing Toastmaster from Maldives who wants to know about paying. What do you think of the payment we need to do for taking extra parts? Should there probably be some discount, or it could be compensated, removed completely?
Well, I guess I don't know. I'm not on the board, so I don't know all of the considerations that the board talked about today, but this is just an opinion from my standpoint. I guess when I look at what the tools that we have today and the way we use tools and the way we have to train our leaders, we really have some huge challenges. We have some huge amount of work that we need to do to be successful. In today's world where everything is instantaneous, if we had a better system, almost a real-time system of knowing where every member that's in a path was at a given time, the club could have information, instantaneous information that you now have to go dig out and use your own ways and wiles and means to determine. We need a system that would do that. Okay, we had that system as long as we didn't start giving away free paths. Once you give away free paths, people sign up for free paths. They sit there until such time as they finally get around to start using them. And we can't track. We don't know then whether they're active in that path or not. So I think at some point in time, we need to get focused and say, members are on this path. We're tracking where they are on this path. We're letting the club know collectively where their members are, instead of having to have all this discussion and these tracking tools, whether it's Easy Speak or Free Toast Toast 2 or whatever it is. There's a tool out there and it comes from World Headquarters. It's an integrated tool. It fits with pathways. And we have a system that really delivers real-time information to help clubs manage what goes on. We can never forget that we deliver what we do in Toastmasters at the club level. We don't do it at the district level. We do it at the club level. We should have the best tools in the world available to the club real time in order to allow them to execute their mission and do what they do. Because that's the only way in today's world we're going to finally turn the corner and really get clubs to a quality level that we can start to say, you know, this is what Toastmasters is all about, and this is where leaders are made.
Thank you, PIP John, for that wonderful insights. Apologies if I couldn't take the last bit of questions, but due to time and some unpleasant situation towards the end, and this happens in big events when we have people logging in from around the world. So apologies. I believe the meeting has been locked not to allow any more people to get in due to security breach, but we learned something very new with technology. So PIP John, thank you. You have been so kind, amazingly kind, for your time you spent with us today. May we have the certificate of appreciation displayed for PIP John Greener. Round of applause.
Thank you all. I think as I look at this, the thing I like about the most is the part down at the bottom where it says old is gold. I'm getting to feel more that way all the time here. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you today. I hope you found this beneficial. I have. I've enjoyed it, and good luck to all of you, regardless wherever you are around the world. And I see there are people from everywhere around the world. So good luck to all of you. And hopefully a year from now, we'll all be able to say, yeah, we're part of that President's Distinguished Club.
Amazing. Thanks a lot, PIP John. So fellow Toastmasters, you heard from our international presidents today, and you could see how humble they were. And this is all about what we can get from Toastmasters International, truly international. They are personalities. They are simply role model for all of us. Thanks again, International President Richard Peck and past International President John Greener, for joining us today. I would now give the control back to our amazing Club Growth Director and Club President, DTM Khalid Abdallah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Ali. And what can I say? Whatever you said so far, amazing, amazing two individuals, amazing two breadth of wisdom and knowledge that we had from the current president and the past president, DTM John and DTM Richard Peck, although I swapped them in the other way around. Thank you so much for both of you for giving us your wisdom. And this is what OIG is all about. All this gold, we are bringing all this gold to you. We are changing it a little bit. We are adding to it a little bit of spices. So I liked the reflection that our current international president just said about his experience and all of what we are here as leaders. DTM John, past international president, also with his wisdom on general leadership, many topics being given to him, and I really appreciate his patience and his wisdom in answering each one of them with the same enthusiasm. There was one thing that I would emphasize as well in DTM John, what he said, coming from a corporate club. I'm a product of a corporate club. My first club was Babco Toastmasters Club. So I really relate very much to whatever he said about cooperation and the importance of pathways. Not just pathways, we need to look at corporate clubs differently. So thank you so much, DTM John, for your wisdom. Now, before we move on, this is the finale. I always call it the finale. I was really honored to be the president of such a prestigious club, Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club. And this would be definitely the last oldest gold in my tenure as the president of Bahrain Advanced Toastmaster Club. So this is really special to me. So may I call on our great help, DTM Zahra Al-Mukharrag, and let's play the video one more time. Please, DTM Zahra, take it away. 0 to 11, OiG 0 to 11. No, I still don't hear the music, DTM Zahra. Maybe DTM Farhaz, if you can share from your end.
Yeah, there is a share sound option somewhere in the bottom while you're trying to share.
Yes, I
Wait.
enabled it, but let me just try one more time.
Yeah, go ahead. It's working now. Thank you so much, DTM Zahra. Looking at all of the series, all of the episodes, one after the other, I feel, wow, has a year just passed in front of my eyes? Let me recognize, if you could not read the names, let me recognize the names that you've just seen in the video. So starting with the most two senior in our club, that's where we started, DTM Ali Shahbaz Ali, DTM Ahmed Rizfi, and they were joined by Toastmaster Abhijit Roy. Thank you so much for you being the first to lead this way. Then we had DTM Thuraya Jama, DTM Farhaz Farooq, DTM Geeta Punachami. Yes, DTM Zahra. Great, yes, thank you so much for doing this. Then we have, well, okay, this is me. I'll just skip. DTM Zahra Al-Mukharrag, Toastmaster Kalpana. She's also around here. Thank you so much for joining us today, Toastmaster Kalpana. Then we had DTM Kamal Shahabi, DTM Ahmed Shukri, and DTM Hisham Jifri, all of them in one shot. Then we had Toastmaster Zahra Bakr, who is a member of our club. DTM Roxana with her table topics. Toastmaster Donna. Wow, what a brilliant, I think she can even sing. And then we had DTM Rajiswar, DTM Robin Anand, and DTM Farhaz Farouk. Then we had, I lost count, this is maybe the 8th. Yes. DTM Basha, Toastmaster DTM Samira Khan, and Toastmaster Taiba. Then we had another 3 as well, DTM Joy, DTM Mirel, who I would come in a minute for her, DTM Muhammad Salim. Then we had 2, Toastmaster Swarna, and DTM Cynthia. Then we had a mixture of all of the international champions in our district, moderated or led initially with DTM Kamal on an international speech tips. Then we had all of them. Let me mention them. Some of them could not attend that day, but I'll mention all of them. Toastmaster Tabassum, DTM Ola, Toastmaster Jijo, DTM Nancy, DTM Archana, Toastmaster Hazem, and Toastmaster Junita. And today, as you can see, we had DTM Richard Pick and DTM John. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart on behalf of Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club for being part of a flagship that we thought of sending positivity during such difficult time. We as leaders, regardless of wherever we are, be it in Bahrain Advanced Toastmasters Club or around the world. Thank you so much for being here today with us. And thank you so much for participating in all this gold series. And I promise, and I can see even the Vice President of Education, who is being the incoming president, wait for more, not maybe me as a president, but we have a new president who is going to take this definitely into a different level. Thank you so much, all of us, all of you, for being here today with us. And there is no adjournment for this meeting, but definitely we would love to hear from you as feedback. So I'll keep this open for a while, and I'll open the floor for questions, and I'll open the mute